Welcome to Philosophy with Xing, where we uncover the beauty behind philosophy. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the question, to what extent does individual belief matter? Well, what does this question actually mean? When breaking down the question, as usual, we'll look at our keywords. First key phrase, what extent? Meaning that there's an implied assumption that individual belief matters. Just how much? So the real question is, how much does individual belief matter? Now, when asking ourselves about individual belief and the idea of whether it matters, we need to also define what matter means. Is it that it's important in our construction of knowledge? Is it that it's important to our own identity? What exactly does individual belief matter, and what does matter actually mean? And definitely last but not least, our third key phrase is individual belief. Is individual to, once again, a person, or is individual to a society? Is individual a symbolism or an implication of being unique? Or is individual just saying a person's belief? Next, the idea of belief. Since this is a philosophical discussion, belief would definitely come from Plato's tripartite definition, where the third condition of knowledge is belief on top of justification and truth. So with our question deconstructed, we now have a better understanding about how we might approach such a question. So firstly, definition of matter. So in this question, I would actually define matter as how important is this element in constructing knowledge. In this case, the question becomes, how important is individual belief in constructing knowledge? And what's the definition of individual belief? We have person, we have society. Well, in my idea, I define, let me get my notes out. So, alright, so I define individual belief as an individual person holding the belief. And there is no wider community that has this belief. Or rather, whether or not this wider community has the belief is irrelevant to the discussion, because the idea of person and the idea of individual, they are the same thing in my essay, in my response. So how am I going to reply? How am I going to construct my response to this question? To what extent does individual belief matter? First thing, you of course have to ask yourself, do you think individual belief matters in the construction of knowledge? I would say yes, to a large extent. It matters. Why? Because of JTB having the condition of belief in the definition of knowledge. So definitely belief will be very beneficial and very useful and essential to the construction of knowledge. If you don't believe it, you cannot say you know it. Second argument, individual belief matters in constructing knowledge due to the importance of the individual knower in obtaining that knowledge. Belief is internalist. Just because the community believes it and you do not, just because the community believes it and you actually do not, does not mean that you have knowledge. So belief is very much internalist. So on top of it being yes by definition. So our first argument is argument by definition. Our second argument is argument by logic. If you as an internal being cannot internalize this idea and cannot take it as cannot believe it, cannot take it as it's true, cannot really accept this belief, then you cannot say that you know it even if it's justified or true. Now, some may say that the belief does not matter as much in constructing knowledge because justification and truth are more important in the tripartite definition. However, all three criteria are equally important. And individually, they are necessary but insufficient. Meaning that you need all three. You have to have all three criteria, all three conditions to the definition of knowledge in order to count a knowledge claim as real knowledge, in the sense that while maybe sometimes people discuss justification and truth more often or more frequently, but belief is still equally important, because Each criteria are equally important and they are individually necessary but individually insufficient, meaning that you need to have all three conditions satisfied before you can consider a knowledge claim knowledge, alright? So individual beliefs do matter to a large extent, although sometimes we might neglect the discussion of it. And this question is essentially highlighting to you that belief is actually very important despite our lack of discussion of it, and we should learn to appreciate the importance of belief in our definition of knowledge. Alright, that's the end of today's episode. Hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to zoom out here so that you can see the annotations that we've made today. Thank you for tuning in and see you at our next episode. Goodbye.